Thank you very much, Caoirlig, and I thank our guests and witnesses for their presentation today. It's very clear, the clear message from all of you was that we need a significant government investment in accommodation, and I think that none of us would disagree with that. And as one of the witnesses said, unfortunately that doesn't happen overnight. It takes some years to get those places and those beds literally in place. But all of us know of the pressures on students and families seeking accommodation this time of the year. We hear it from our constituency, also hear it through family and friends, practically in every, whether it's Dublin, Galway, Limerick, Sligo, whatever, there seems to be pressure in every centre where there's a higher education institution nowadays, particularly the more significant urban centres. Could I just say that Minister Lawless, when he was with us, he stated very clearly at this committee, and I heard him state it in response to parliamentary questions as well, that student accommodation is a top priority for him. He indicated to us at that stage, and it's some time ago, that he was hoping to meet with your own union, with the association, with the ethos, and also then with each student union. And I hope he has that opportunity to engage with you, because he emphasised very strongly that he wanted to listen to yourselves and to act and work along with you. And we all want to see progress being made in that particular respect. Again, another issue that Minister Lawless referred to when he was with us here, and again in parliamentary questions, was he was very clear the student beds must be for students. And I think they have to be returned from other uses that were built with financial incentives, particularly for students, and that's the use they should be put to. He also said at that time there was a significant number under construction, maybe upwards of 2,000. Some have come online, I think are available this year in Maynooth, and some more beds at UCD, some more accommodation at UCD as well. But we want to see more and more in each centre where there's a demand. Could I also say that digs, and you've made the point that you're disappointed with the feedback from some people who are available to rent a room or digs. I have to say, engaging with my own constituents, with young people I know who have been renting a room or in digs in different centres, that fortunately for the people that I know, they're all good experiences. And rent a room in digs has always been a part of the student accommodation. I recall in my own days in UCD, that area around Kilmacud, Drum, back into Slorg, and all of that area, there was a huge amount of students at that time were availing of accommodation with families at that time within walking distance of the Belfield campus. So maybe it dwindled in importance for some years, but it has returned again to be an important part of the accommodation provision, and I think there's a good incentive there for families to take it up. And I want to compliment yourselves and the different student unions, because I have seen it myself, students out handing out flyers, advertising it, and pointing out how it can be attractive for a family, a homeowner or a family to avail of renting out a room. But of course, any of us would not be satisfied if there are undue restrictions in regard to facilities in the house or the time you can come and go. You're dealing with young adults, and they should have the freedom to come and go as they want, and they shouldn't be restricted in access to facilities within a home. Could I just ask, and I agree entirely with you, that more government investment is needed. I think Minister Lawless, from what he said to us, and again listening to him internally within our own party, he's very strong in relation to the provision of additional accommodation by the state. One of you mentioned about the divergence in the borrowing framework between the traditional universities and the technological universities. That anomaly needs to be removed. Technological universities are now they're higher education institutions, and they should have the same access to borrowing as has traditional universities. The last time I queried that, the response that I was given was that the technological sector student accommodation programme is currently progressing through the infrastructure guidelines process, which includes a strategic assessment and preliminary business case. I sincerely hope whatever preparatory work has to be done to enable the technological universities to borrow on the same terms as the traditional universities, that should be progressed as quickly as possible. Just with regard to the presentation in regard to Atlantic Technological University, has all the accommodation in Sligo not return to student use? Because I know back a few years ago, some students from my own county of Cavan, that part of West Cavan, quite a number would go to Sligo traditionally, and I know some had expected to be going into the student accommodation, and then when the beginning of term came, that accommodation was not available. We had a clear understanding, or I had a clear understanding anyway, that all student accommodation was being returned for student use for this academic year. So I might just get clarification on that, if that's okay, Cahill. Thank you.
Yeah, I will give clarification on that. So I think it was in 2023 when Ben Bulben and Milligan Court, which were two of the purpose student-built accommodations in Sligo, needless to say, privately owned purpose-built accommodations in Sligo, were repurposed to house temporary beneficiaries. And no, they didn't come back. I believe Milligan right now still houses temporary beneficiaries. Ben Bulben, there were some issues with planning permissions, I believe, so that is vacant. I believe there's a few council houses, but it's not being utilized. And then also we have a block called Clarion Village. There's 8 blocks in Clarion Village. 2 of them were purposed for temporary beneficiaries. Right now, this year, those 2 blocks are going back to students. However, officially in the planning, they are not purpose-built accommodation anymore. So the 6 blocks that are there are, let's say, priced $450 for unseat for a month. However, the 2 blocks that were outside of the purpose-built status, let's say, are right now almost $900 a month. It is the same accommodation, it is the same complex. However, there was a possibility to raise it. So, no. The Clarion Village, yes, it's back to students, but rent is double. And Ben Bulben and Milligan Court, Milligan pretty much vacant. No, I apologize, Ben Bulben pretty much vacant, Milligan housing temporary beneficiaries.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Maybe we could raise that with the department. I'm sure our colleague, Deputy Frank Feehan, who represents Sligo Leitrim, that he's probably more familiar with the particular situation in Sligo, but it's one I'm sure that all of us would be glad to raise with the Minister.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Cahill.
Thank you. Now,